Can I share the gospel with my employees? This is just one of many questions that business owners have. Many are afraid to share their faith publicly in business, not because of fear of rejection, but because fear of being sued. Today, we're talking about the do's and don'ts of being a Christian business owner. Hey, lady bosses, are you working even after putting the kids to bed but still not getting results?
Are you tired of spending money on ads that aren't getting engagement?
Do you feel burdened that you aren't fulfilling your purpose in life because you are so consumed with work?
I'm your host, Brooke Boltz. I'm an attorney and founder of Boltz Legal. I started my business and in 1 year was bringing in 7 figures and am now bringing in multi-7 figures.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Boltz, owner of Boltz Media. I've helped many businesses build their online presence and increase their revenue through digital marketing.
Want to hear how we did it?
We are here to help you achieve your goals personally, professionally, and spiritually.
So kick off your high heels, sit back, and let's ignite that passion.
We're Ms Biz, where we're putting the Miss in biz.
Let's get biz done. I always assumed that the reason people didn't share about their faith in business was because they were afraid of losing clients or offending people or being rejected. But recently, I went to the U.S. Christian Chamber of Commerce conference and realized that so many people there weren't afraid to share their faith, but they were afraid of doing it wrong. They were afraid that they might break a rule or they might get sued, and they just didn't have a good understanding of what they could and couldn't do. So that's what inspired this episode today, is to give you an idea of the do's and don'ts so that you can operate in confidence in your faith and not out of fear.
Yeah, I think this is a great topic that any Christian business owner can really take some notes from and learn how to best implement Christianity into their business without fear of any potential consequences.
So the first question is, can I adopt a statement of faith for my business? And the answer is yes. But how you use it matters more than just having it. And in fact, if you're a Christian business owner, it's actually a good idea to have a statement of faith, and we'll talk about some of the reasons why later. So private businesses are generally allowed to define their mission and their values. There's no law prohibiting you from having a statement of faith, but enforcement of it is where liability can arise under Title VII, which is religious discrimination. So what you can do is you can publish a statement of faith. You can use it to guide your branding, your client selection, and your internal culture. But what you can't do is use it to exclude employees in a non-religious organization. You cannot apply it inconsistently, and you cannot use it as a proxy for other protected classes.
So when the courts look at it, they ask, is this a sincerely held belief guiding the business, or is this being used as a legal shield? When evaluating sincerity, they often look at the duration of the belief, so how long has it existed, the consistency, is it being applied across the board, any documentation, so this includes policies, handbooks, public statements, conduct, so they want to make sure that the actions accurately match the belief, and timing, was it created before or after a dispute?
And this is why I say that it's a good idea to just create that statement of faith early, because if you create it later during a time where there's potentially some conflict with an employee, you could be accused of just creating the statement of faith to now discriminate against that person. Right. So creating it early, creating it now when there's no conflict, and then having your actions and your brand be consistent with that statement of faith is going to demonstrate straight to the courts if it ever got to that place, that this is something that you have held for a long period of time and that you live by, not something that you just created to deal with one specific conflict.
Yeah. Another major question is, can I share the gospel with my employees? And the answer is yes, but this is one of the most litigated areas. Under Title VII, employers can express religious beliefs, but cannot create a hostile work environment or coercion. So what you can do is have faith-based conversations, share your beliefs voluntarily, answer questions about your faith, and invite employees to faith discussions. But where this can create a liability is repeated, unwanted evangelizing, linking faith participation to promotions, job security, or favorable treatments.
Yes. So when the courts have looked at this question, they ask, would a reasonable employee feel pressured to participate? And if the answer is yes, they would feel pressured, then that crosses into the you cannot do that territory. You can't pressure people to participate. You cannot be actively evangelizing them in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable or makes them feel like if they don't follow whatever guidance you're directing them towards, that they would be they would not be promoted or would not be valued within the company. So you can talk openly about your faith, you can talk openly about your beliefs, you just can't pressure your employees to agree with you.
Right.
Having a standout speaker resume is so important to booking speaking engagements. If you're looking to increase your speaking engagements, but don't know where to start with your speaker resume and you'd like to see a couple of examples, we would be happy to share ours with you.
Go to msbiz.com/contact and in the subject line type speaker resumes and we'll send you your copy today. Another common question is, can I have prayer meetings for employees? And the answer again is yes, but it must be voluntary and clearly optional. So the best practices in order to keep you and your business safe are to make it explicitly optional. So definitely want to have that in writing. No tracking attendance, no leadership pressure, like we'd really love to see everybody there. This is important to our culture. You want to make sure that it's completely optional. Now, there are some high-risk factors. So supervisors leading prayer with direct reports, meetings during mandatory work time, employees feeling observed or judged. Those are all things that you're going to want to make sure that you stay away from. But how to have a safe structure would be to have it be employee-led or clearly voluntary leadership-led. You want to make sure that there's no outside required duties and no employment consequences tied to the attendance.
The next question that is common is, can I give employees religious literature? And the answer is yes, but the frequency and the context matter. So if you give someone something one time or occasionally, then that's generally okay. But if it's repeated and it's unwanted, then that could lead to a potential harassment claim. So here's an example. Hey, I have a book that's impacted me. Would you like a copy? That is good. That's okay. In contrast, a problem would be every week you're distributing information or literature to employees who've already declined it in the past. Also, if you're leaving materials on their desks after they've already asked not to receive it, that's where the problem lies. So the test is, has the employee indicated that they're not interested? If yes, then you need to stop.
All right, and then another example of questions that have been observed or heard in regards to this particular topic are, can I require training based on biblical principles? And this depends entirely on your business type. So if it's a religious organization, so church, ministries, religious nonprofits, then you have strong protection under Title VII religious exemption, and you can require faith-based training.
But for-profit businesses, which is what most of us have, is more limited. So you cannot require that someone participate in a devotional, for example. You cannot require that they agree with your religious doctrine. You cannot require that they worship or have any particular religious exercise. But you can require values-based training framed as integrity, honesty, leadership, servanthood. So you can take those Christian-based values and incorporate that into your training in a more neutral way. So strategy is to translate biblical principles into neutral workplace values and use that as the framework for your training, as opposed to direct religious training materials.
Yeah. And if you're curious if you can regulate employee speech or desk displays, yes, you can, but neutrality and consistency are everything. So some of the legal framework to follow would be employers can regulate workplace environment, professionalism, and disruptive behavior. But under Title VII, you cannot discriminate based on religion. So some safe policy structure would be no political or controversial displays that must be applied equally, and to maintain a professional workplace. And I mean, those two things really should be standard in your operations manual or your new employee handbook anyways. You do have a high risk by allowing secular messaging but banning religious messaging, or selectively enforcing rules. And some of the things that the courts use to question these items are, is the policy neutral or is it viewpoint discrimination?
Right. The next question is, can I control music in the workplace? And the answer is yes. And the courts find that this is really one of the strongest areas that you can control. So you can set playlists, you can ban explicit content, and you can align music with your brand. But what you have to watch out for is if the music policy is clearly targeting a religion or group, then there could be a potential issue. Otherwise, this is generally a low litigation risk policy, so you're probably safe to play music of your choosing in the workplace.
Another question is, can I limit certain jobs to Christians? And the answer is only if you qualify as a religious organization. So Title VII's rules are religious organizations can prefer religionists, but for-profit businesses cannot require employees to be Christian. So there's an important distinction. Even religious organizations cannot discriminate based on race, sex, or anything else that's under the guise of religion. So this is one of the most commonly misunderstood areas and one of the fastest ways to trigger a lawsuit. So some of the master principles that you'll want to follow are, everything comes down to these things. You are allowed to express, but you are not allowed to coerce.
Right. Do you love the Ms Biz podcast?
Because we love you.
Here's 3 things you can do to show your support.
1, write us a review. Apple, Spotify, and Google My Business are the best platforms to write a review.
2, follow us on social media. Our handle is @Ms Biz Podcast.
3, join our Facebook group, Ms Biz Nation, for exclusive content and behind-the-scenes footage. Also, ask questions related to your business and discuss topics from our episodes.
So what courts look for in this analysis is, was participation voluntary? Was there pressure applied, either directly or subtly? Were policies applied equally? Was there retaliation? And was the employer consistent? So those are the things that you want to keep in mind as you navigate through your faith-based practices. And what employers generally can do and have pretty broad authority to do is to standardize email signatures with your logos or titles or disclaimers. You can set branding and communication policies. You can require professionalism in communications. And so the question that I was looking into in addition to this was, can some employers have required their employees to put their pronouns into an email signature. And so I was looking to see if that was something that could be required. So the answer basically is you can make that a policy unless the employee objects based on religious practices. So if you can say we're all going to put our pronouns, but if an employee says I have a religious belief that violates and that I prefer not to put my pronoun, then the employer has to reasonably accommodate your religious beliefs. So unless it would create an undue hardship for the business to do so, but it would not be, in my opinion, undue hardship for an employer to simply not have a pronoun in someone's signature block. So that's my advice on that topic. So is the belief sincerely held? Is there a conflict with the policy? Can the employer reasonably accommodate it? Those are the three factors that the courts look at.
Right, and so this area is actively evolving, but trends show that courts are increasingly sensitive to compelled speech arguments. Employers who refuse any accommodation are at higher risk, and policies that are rigid or inflexible are the most vulnerable. So some practical scenarios, this is a lower risk one, here are standard signature format. Pronouns are encouraged but optional. Moderate risk would be pronouns are required, but we will consider religious accommodations. Higher risk would be pronouns are mandatory, no exemptions. If an employee objects, then they're disciplined or terminated. That's where lawsuits happen. Kind of reminds me of like what we're seeing now with all of like the vaccinations, the mandatory vaccinations that were done during COVID, and how there's a lot of lawsuits emerging in certain states due to just how aggressive they were in nature.
Right. And the key to those lawsuits as well is if they expressed that it was a religious belief. If they did not say, I am objecting to the vaccine because of religious beliefs, then this isn't going to apply. If they did say that taking this vaccine violates my religious beliefs, then you've got a religious discrimination case in that situation. And unfortunately, a lot of people did not. It may have been a religious belief, but they didn't express that, and that's where the problem arises. So what about requiring employees to use other people's pronouns? This is a different issue, but still similar tension can arise. What employers can require is people to be respectful and non-harassing in their communication, but if they're forced to affirm beliefs that they object to, then this can be considered harassment or a violation of their religious freedoms, and also compelling speech in violation of our freedom of speech. So I would caution against forcing someone who does not want to utilize someone's preferred pronoun to make them do so if it violates their religious beliefs.
Right. So some of the best practices, if you're advising or implementing a policy, would be to make pronouns optional, include neutral language where it states employees may include pronouns if they choose, and have a religious accommodation process. You want to make sure that you're avoiding things like zero expectation mandates or zero exception mandates, immediate discipline without accommodation review, treating objections as misconduct automatically. The bottom line is, yes, an employer can standardize email signatures, but forcing pronoun display without accommodation flexibility is a huge legal exposure under Title VII. So one rule is you can set the format, but you cannot ignore religious objections to the format.
So hopefully this helps you in navigating the do's and don'ts in your business. I think the overarching principle is you can share your faith publicly, you just can't force it on other people. And especially as a business owner, you have to be careful of that because you are in a leadership position and have to be mindful of not preferring people who maybe subscribe to your religious belief as opposed to others who don't. So in Ms Biz Nation, drop us a comment and let us know which of these questions are you currently doing in your business, and more importantly, do you have it documented in the right way?
Right.
We appreciate you and are honored to be on this journey with you. We can't wait to help you, to encourage you, and show you how to grow personally, professionally, and spiritually.
If you found Ms Biz helpful, please leave a review and share with others.
You can follow us on social media at Ms Biz Podcast.
For legal questions or services, please visit boltslegal.com.
And for digital marketing needs, please visit boltsmedia.com. Let's get biz done.